more then? Or she switched? Hello, this is School Committee Update. Today with Laura Pitone from Ward 5. I'm Sarah Fishman. How are we doing? We're a little less wet than, gosh, it's really pouring. Quickly, let's talk about the fact that you were the senior person. How long have you been on the school committee?
I'm finishing out my 12th year.
12?
Yes.
Wow.
It happens.
Yeah, it does happen. And you've had 2 students go through the schools. I know this is broad, but do you have a sense of what's particularly changed, either as a parent or as a school committee member? What's been most striking?
I mean, so many things, and I'll probably reflect even from when my kids started, which was way before I started on the school committee.
Right.
There's been a lot of change and evolution in special education. The challenges still continue. Individual families and students have struggle, but there's been an increased investment and increased leadership around the topic. Out of school time, so we used to call it after school, now they call it out of school time. Huge strides. What used to be sort of like a babysitting service now has really rich programming. We have outside providers as well as an internal program. And curriculum. That has been one of the things that I'm probably most excited about, that and the use of data. So data has always been part of how we evaluate and improve the work of the schools, but the putting in better systems and training educators in terms of how to utilize data and how to understand where their students are and what challenges they're having. The use of technology has really increased. So overall, I mean, we've had since I've been here, there's been 3 different superintendents, and each has brought a particular expertise that has really moved the district forward. And then the other piece, which I think Somerville really excels in, is family involvement, and particularly for families that are not typically part of the conversation. We really provide resources and work with the city to make sure that families have access to all kinds of services that are even outside the bounds of the school. So I really do think the investment in that has really been sort of something I'm incredibly proud of. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Very meaty. Let's talk first off about something not directly in your committee's control, but the federal government shutdown is now going into its 2nd week. How has that, if yet, impacted the schools?
I mean, we haven't, according to the superintendent's office, nothing yet. I mean, the biggest impact around the federal government is how funding comes to the state and how that funding, mostly the title funding, gets distributed, and IDA, which is a special education bucket of money, gets distributed through the district. And there hasn't been any stop payments, I guess is the word I would use. And we have, our budget's $112 million, just for the context.
Which is about 1/3 of the overall city budget.
Yes, and it does not include buildings, so the city also expends more money than that dealing with the facilities, as we know has been a big issue of late. And of that, about $3.5 million comes from the Fed. So that's through multiple title funding, focused on mostly special education and early childhood ed. So that's our exposure. Separately, we also get about $2 million for food services. So that just gets managed in a different account. That's why it doesn't fall on. So from the regular basic budget, it's about a 3% of our full budget, and then another $2 million for
So
food.
Is there a rainy day fund, or is there a cushion?
There are stabilization funds. We used some of them this year. We accessed them because of really wanting to get to an agreement in the union contract and really wanting to be able to give educators more than we could based on what originally was offered by the city. And then the city also pulled from one of their stabilization funds to add to the budget. So they added another $1.5 million in the budget, which was the mayor's creative way of trying to boost us up and being able to meet the commitments of what we wanted to do for our educators.
Right. So there were also, maybe you've rolled this into your answer, but there were also these cuts at the Department of Education several months ago. Is there any?
It hasn't.
Not yet.
I think everybody's sort of in this wait mode, right?
Yeah.
And everyone is trying to be very conservative about. I know the city was very conservative with their
Yes.
budgeting, and really just being aware of our exposure and how would we, we would have to go to the city council and ask. So, for
Right.
example, if that $3 million, which I know we've already received some of it, so it's not like they asked for the money back. So, I mean, over time, there's funds that we need, but we're not highly dependent.
Okay. Is that going to change? Do you have any idea? This is maybe a silly question. Do you have any idea how long this will last? If you go online, you see these professional betting services,
this
for
is
lack
about
of a
the
better way.
shutdown,
Yeah.
or?
Yes. And they'll say there is a 64% chance that it'll go more than 21 days. And then there's some sort of asking real people, and
Yeah.
it's completely different.
Exactly.
Do you have-
I wouldn't. I looked at the New York Times
Yeah.
last night, and it was sort of the perception that they were that the administration wanted to come to the table. So we'll see what happens. And so if the administration is signaling that they want to address
Yeah,
the healthcare asks that
Yeah.
the Democrats are asking for, hopefully we'll get some outcome, and hopefully that will be in service to families and individuals whose healthcare is at risk to be
Yeah.
much more expensive.
Yeah. And going back to the food, and maybe this is too specific, but I read something about, I didn't know what a carrot card was.
Okay.
So is there any, what is that? It's money that goes to families who have children in the schools
I
to pay
apologize.
for?
I am not
Okay,
familiar
well,
with the carrot cards.
I should have pulled that out of the.
No, that's okay. But the funding that we get is for the breakfast and the lunch that
Okay.
we offer. And
I
right
think
now,
this is different.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
offer
Free.
free,
Yeah.
and that's through the Fed, through the state, through our own
Right.
funding. So that would be a real setback if we had to
Yeah.
pull that back. I think it's been a real equalizer.
Yes.
Back when we had free and reduced lunch, kids were, unfortunately in this position of being identified in terms of their
Yeah.
socioeconomic
And now you just have to
status.
fill out the form at the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
but everybody,
Yeah, it's all the same.
it's all the same. So that's really, I think, great for the students' experience and their identity. And
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about special education, and you're going to have to stop me because I know that this is a very big issue, and you know a lot about it. But in terms of government funding and that kind of thing, so the schools got there was some state report,
Yep.
right, saying that the schools here need assistance.
Yep.
Can you explain, first of all, what that means, needs assistance?
I mean, they looked at all the parameters in terms of outcomes, in terms of attendance, in terms of graduation rates, and they felt like based on our peer districts, we weren't meeting the bar. Last year was pretty challenging, and there were issues around how quickly we could hire staff. Because basically, as students get identified through a process where either families say, please evaluate my kid, or the school recommends that the student gets evaluated, you can't necessarily always predict how many students you're going to have and what their profile is going to be. And as students get identified, the caseloads increase. And so one of the things that the district has been working on, which I've been pleased about, is having a more proactive method of evaluating caseloads and saying, okay, we're starting to see that this school or this grade band is having an increase in caseloads, and we need to make sure that we're starting to hire.
How does one even do that?
It's data and it's tracking.
Yeah.
So like keeping track of how many students are in the pipeline, thinking about what's the probability that student is actually going to be qualified for services, and just being as prepared as you can. But that's one of the things that's really hard, is
Yes.
because it's a very dynamic situation. So that was one of the challenges that we had, and the district wasn't able to deliver the level of service that they normally would. And so they've put into place this way of, I think they called it like a caseload weighted average. I don't know the details, but being able to look at it more systemically so that we'll make sure that we're hiring the right people at the right time.
So forgive me, but this has to be a long-term thing, not just in Somerville, the not having enough staff. And I was reading the Special Education Parent Advisory Group's letter.
Yeah.
So it was 25 pages long.
Yes. Oh,
That-
yes.
It was some people were incredibly focused
Yeah.
and detail oriented.
No, they're incredible advocates
Yeah.
for, serving and being a parent of a kid that has special needs is really complicated.
Yes.
I've known lots of families. I've been that family, and being able, the CPAC did, so that's the Special
Right.
Education Advisory Council, which is a legally mandated body of parents that provides supports to families and to the district. They went out and did a lot of research. They did a lot of collection
They
of
talked to individual teachers.
and
that-
there's a lot of anecdotal information, which is
Yeah.
completely important.
Yes.
And then on the other side, the district is trying to collect the data. There's the qualitative data, there's the quantitative data, and all these things matter.
Yeah.
And no one, as frustrated as a parent gets, there's no educator that doesn't want to give a student what they need.
Right.
Like every,
But what do you do? Like one person was quoted as saying he has 21 kids, fourth grade teacher, and 5 of them have IEPs,
Yep.
and 4 of them are non-readers and non-writers.
Yep.
I mean, this is not unique. I'm aware of that. I haven't experienced it directly myself, but what's the answer to that other than more money? But if you don't have the money.
yeah, it's, it's at a bare minimum, you've got to meet your legally mandated requirement. And we need to have systems to do our best to assess where our students are.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to train our educators and provide the additional staff where necessary and additional services to support all of that.
Yeah.
And it's not a small task. If it was easy to do, it would have been done a long time ago. And if you meet a kid that has dyslexia, you've met one kid that has dyslexia. If you meet a student that's on the autism spectrum, you've met one student on the autism spectrum. They're not cookie cutter. How we provide what they need may be very different from what another student needs with the same diagnosis.
Well, that just makes it harder.
It makes it
harder
incredibly
to answer
hard.
my question, I guess.
No, I know, and the thing is, my heart goes out to the families. My heart goes out to the educators. Like I said, no one goes into education because they're going to become a billionaire.
Yeah.
They go into education because they're mission driven and they're passionate. And we, as a district, doing everything we can to better understand what students need and better be able to provide those services and, striving to get to where we need to get to.
I'm remembering something. I think it's still true that the percentage of students in Somerville who are identified as having special needs is slightly higher than the statewide
Yep.
average. So the challenge is perhaps a little harder.
Yeah, and also we have a significant population of duly identified, so like students who qualify for special education but also are language learners,
Right.
English language learners. So
Right.
that adds a whole other layer on it. So it just continues to challenge us as a district, and the CPAC is a partner in identifying how families are feeling and what the issues are. And one of the things I'm also excited about is that the district and the CPAC are going to be working, and I apologize, it's called APPLE. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's a program to help build collaboration between
good.
the CPAC and the special education team and educators in Somerville. So that's starting, I think it started either yesterday or today.
Wow.
They're going to have their first session. So
That's really cute, Apple.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the district is responsive. I think that's one of the things that when people ask me about Somerville, we have a complex student population.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at MCAS scores, that is going to be, the real driver to MCAS scores. Obviously, if we have a large low income, large high needs, large special education, large population of language learners, our MCAS scores are going to be lower than a community that does not have that.
That's why I didn't bring it up almost.
It's a very,
yeah.
I think you need a thermometer, right? You need a way to assess where we are and to see how we're growing and improving. And that's why we spend energy on growth percentiles and looking at our kids growing in addition to looking at the raw data. And I apologize, we started out and I got distracted.
About special needs children, about having a higher challenge to meet, maybe, because...
Yeah, Somerville.
Yes.
I think the thing that in my own experience as a parent and as a school committee member, is responsive.
Yeah.
So
you just want to make sure that happens.
No, that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's really easy, not easy, but some districts kind of just put up a wall and say, this is what we do and this is how we do it.
Okay.
Where Somerville is more, okay, thank you for that feedback. Like, let's figure out together what we can do. And I think it's a district where families and communities can have influence and impact.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And it's open to that. I think that's, when people ask me about the district, like I said, you can look at all these numbers and say, oh, well, you're an urban district.
But are you shutting the door or not?
Yeah, and not recognizing that the strength in this district partially is the complex diversity of the population. That actually has been an incredible thing for my own kids.
Yeah.
Right? When my kids talk about kids from other countries, kids from other backgrounds, kids with different needs, like that's part of their community, and they're empathetic to that. And families who choose to stay, go to the public schools in Somerville recognize that. And part and parcel with that is the fact that the district is very responsive and trying to always grow and improve.
Why our son went K-12.
Yeah.
So let's switch a lot perhaps. I guess I want to talk next about the pre-K to 8 school project. So this just grows more complex, at least for me.
Yeah.
And maybe I should start out by just asking, what is your opinion? Do you have a general opinion on what should happen? We have the Winter Hill Community School, and we have the Brown School.
Yep.
And do you have any just personal opinion?
I mean, I've given a ton of thought to this. Way back when when I first started in the school committee, we had been submitting to the MSBA, which is the state body that funds schools, to support both the Brown and the Winter Hill. And on and off different years we submitted. And we submitted, whatever it was, I think it's 2003. And the MSBA said, great, we were going to fund the Winter Hill. And when you look at the two schools, obviously the Winter Hill at that point in time was not was shut down. It was shut.
Yes.
Because of concerns about safety, and so all the kids moved to the Edgerly. So it's not a surprising choice. Generally, it would be unusual for the MSBA to fund 2 schools at once. But the interesting thing they did is they said, well, we can fund the one school, or if you want to create a school that has the total population of both of these schools, we'll be willing to fund that.
Which could be 925 kids.
That is sort of the number that has been floated.
But even if it's close to that, I mean, what are there, not quite 1,200 kids in the high school? I mean, more than 900 kids.
It would be the
That is a very large number of
the expectation is it would be the largest school in the district. Now, a school that large is not unheard of in a lot of communities. Doesn't mean that is right for our community, but it's not unheard of. So the city and the mayor decided to create the construction advisory group,
right?
Which people call the CAG. And it's a diverse population, right? There's representatives from the Brown School, the Winter Hill School, other schools, people who don't have kids, people in the community partners, school committee. There's a school district rep,
city
council. So they're trying to have a really broad coalition of people to really look at the data and what the options are, because at the heart of this is community, right?
Right.
And so asking a city or current school communities to dismantle their community is an incredibly painful idea.
The Brown School, where it's very close, where's the border between Ward 5 and Ward 6?
It's I live on Rogers, and the next street is Josephine,
right?
And that is the border.
Okay.
So technically,
it's all in.
It's in 6.
Yes.
And the Winter Hill is technically in 4, even though it's also on the border.
Okay.
And wards for me, and pretty much, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but we don't think in wards, right? Like you have to represent the people who live where you live.
Right.
But you also have to look at the big picture. And being on a school committee is about the big picture, right? Like we have to make decisions for the long run, for the next 50 years, not the next 2 years.
So what are you thinking? And then we don't need to answer that immediately, but what are people saying to you? Since you're so close to the Brown School, are they saying, we don't want being part of a bigger school, or what are you hearing?
I mean, people are passionate about their school district. I mean, their school communities.
Right.
And people opt in to the choices. So people have opted into the Winter Hill, people have opted into the Brown, which is the only K-5 in our district.
It used to be K-6 when my
Yes.
son was there.
Yeah, and we reduced it to 5 because we couldn't deliver services, and we just
Small building.
We did not have
Yeah.
enough space to give the kids what they
Yeah,
needed.
the principal often, her assistant, I think she was in a broom closet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really tricky building, but it has huge heart.
Yeah.
It has huge history. But also the Winter Hill has been around not as long, but there's a real connection of that community to their choice, to their location, their staff, everything. And, you know, kind of adding a little more framing with this idea of having a single school. I don't even want to say combined school. It's a new school, right? Either choice.
But what
whether
do you
it's-
think about a school that big? Do you
Well-
have a gut reaction to it?
It's so the district did a nice job
Okay.
of kind of analyzing, and they were looking at sort of the different characteristics in terms of diversity of student population, distance to school, size, and large facilities, the addition of large facilities. Because these were the kind of the characteristics that would be considered in terms of whether or not there's going to be a single school or two schools. And they looked at it and they researched in terms of outcomes, so student outcomes. So if you increase the diversity of a student population, will that positively improve outcomes or negatively impact outcomes for students? And overall, it's a positive thing. So the more diverse population of kids, assuming the right level of supports, you're going to have better outcomes in general for kids. If you look at size, they kind of did this analysis where, up to about 700, there's really not a difference. Students, there's really not a difference in terms of size, in terms of student outcomes. As you get over 700, there can be either a flattening, so no increase, or there could be a small
difference.
a little deterioration
Okay.
to outcomes. The distance issue, they basically said, look, none of these locations, because one of the locations being considered is Trom, the other location is the current
Field and
yeah,
on
Sycamore
Highland,
Street.
where the Winter Hill is now,
The
yeah.
distance issue, they kind of said it's negligible. It shouldn't impact outcomes. And the other thing was kind of adding additional facility, large facility space, which they thought that, or not thought, this is research based, I didn't do the research, that having larger spaces for students to get together, for families to get together, for students to do gross motor inside, having lunch, has positive impact on outcomes. So on all those characteristics, size is a question mark, right?
Okay.
But all the other characteristics, if there was a school that was, took these, and it wouldn't look like this. It was not like all of a sudden you just put all the Brown kids and all the Winter Hill kids
Yeah.
into one school. They would all distribute throughout the district. People would make different choices because we have school choice. But that increasing that diversity could be beneficial. That's sort of the research
All
side
right,
of
I'm
it.
going to pull on this string just a
So,
teeny
no, go
bit
ahead.
more. So your kids,
Yeah.
two different people.
Yeah.
Could you see, what would have you wanted? If it were my son, I would not have been, I think, happy about one of my few good choices being a school that's 5 to 6 stories tall with over 900
Yeah.
kids. I think it would have been overwhelming. Maybe to him, definitely to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I think these are great questions.
but what do you
So
think?
I'm going to back up a little bit. When I think
Okay.
about it as like a school committee member, like when people ask me,
Yeah.
like, what am I thinking about? Like, what are the ways that I assess or think about this situation? I think about equity and access. That's number one. That is like the core of what we're trying to do as a district is, do the best by all of our students and give them what they need.
Okay,
The second thing is safety.
right.
I have, and you have, and everyone in the city has this experience when the brown roof fell in, when the Winter Hill building had its problem. That is paramount, making sure our kids are safe and are
Yeah.
in a building that I can be comfortable and sleep well
It's
at
not
night.
going to fall on your kid.
Exactly,
Yeah.
or the boiler goes out, which
Right.
that has happened at
So
the Brown
which
recently.
way which way does that go?
Well, no, and let me finish.
Okay.
So equity and access, safety, making sure we have enough seats. That's number one, right? We have to have enough seats. And cost. Cost matters. And I want to be frank because cost is going to be a big factor here. My understanding is that based on, so the CAT got this great report from the city that sort of imagined what these things could look like: a 2-building option, a single building option. And the difference between doing 2 different buildings and doing a single building is anywhere between $55 and $65 million more to do 2 buildings. And as we all know, that's something that the voters would have to accept through a ballot initiative
Right.
for the debt exclusion, which basically
The
means
state
people.
would probably pay close to half of
Yeah,
that.
the state pays the MSBA. The reason you do MSBA
Right.
is they pay half of it.
But then there's still.
But no, the 65 is actually beyond. That is
Oh, it
beyond
is?
the half. That is 55 to $65 million more,
Okay.
with the assumption that, you know, that the Brown would not be funded by the state. It could be, so maybe a little bit of it would be funded. But everybody's kind of up in the air about this. Like this, you know, people might disagree with me, but when the state basically says, we're going to fund one school or we'll fund a big school, they're signaling.
Yeah.
And granted, 10 years from now, it could be a different administration from the MSBA, and so they might have a different opinion. But when they're making choices about how to fund schools, that's challenging. So, you know, when you think about a two-school solution, which I've given a lot of serious consideration to this, it would have to, for me, include updates to the Brown. And the city would have to commit to doing that work. I would feel incredibly uncomfortable if we committed to the Winter Hill and then just let the Brown languish.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's
Okay.
not ADA compliant.
Right. Yes.
We don't have enough space to be able to, you know, privately deliver all the services that kids need. There's not all those large spaces, which I know some families say, well, I like not having large spaces, but, you know, there's evidence to say that having all these large spaces actually help outcomes for students. And kind of critically for me is that students and families who have more complicated needs, based on, if you just look at the data of the population of kids there, overwhelmingly do not choose that school.
Do not choose which.
Brown.
Okay.
They do not choose that school.
Because the facilities
The
are.
facilities are not
Okay.
sufficient.
I
So
don't-
that's an access issue for me.
Okay. And you've been very consistent on this. We don't, I think, have a whole lot more time.
Sure.
I do want to ask, because this has incredibly confused me. The CAG is supposed to make a
good question.
recommendation
Yep.
to the mayor.
Yep.
And then the mayor is to issue a decision, I guess, on the scope
Yeah.
and location
Yep.
of any new building.
Yep.
Who are we talking about when we say mayor?
So I asked that question explicitly multiple times in the
Yes.
last several weeks, and the latest information I received, and I hope that does not change, is that the current mayor is going to make that decision before the end of the year. So the CAG is supposed to make their recommendation in November. We have not received the data from the survey yet.
Which ended in September.
Yes,
Yes, the
September
survey did.
22nd, I think.
Yes.
So we haven't received that information. I asked Andre Green, who's the rep from the school committee, says soonish. He expects that it will get that data. And they'll make their rec in November, and then the current mayor will make the decision before the end of the year. That's what I was told.
On that almost definitive note,
As much as I know.
we need to stop. This
Okay.
has been School Committee Update. Have a good day.